Well, it's not every day that you get to play a Donald Duck game on a Super Nintendo that makes you go,
Oh boy!
so is this game it? Or does Donald and Maui Mallard lay an egg? Find out today on Technical Difficulties.
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay. So it's me, Paolo, Jacob, Jason, and Ryan discussing the game. Um, well, to be honest, I was thinking of uploading this as a podcast on YouTube, and I realized that there's actually a higher chance that people will listen to this podcast than Razor X reuniting, and and I don't know if that's a sad thing.
I
But
don't know.
It's
Paul
the realistic
basically
thing.
said fast stuff isn't music.
yeah,
Oh
that
dear.
latest Paul interview was this disturbing. I don't know. Everyone was like, okay, R.I.P. Racer X. But okay, anyway, let's go to the game.
Yes, game.
Uh, anyway, this game was chosen by Matt. I don't remember why he chose it. I think it was because of he said he played it when he was a kid,
Yeah.
and that was yeah. So anyway, we could talk about the world design first. Let's see, what's here? Creation of a backstory, setting, theme, and yeah. So what do you guys think?
For the world design, like as in level design, or as in like the
No, no,
story, or
like the overarching world that the game is situated in.
okay.
Yeah,
Well, it's basically it stars Donald Duck, and there's really not much more that we could say about that because it's Donald Duck in his alter ego, Maui Mallard, who also has an alter ego called Shadow, that ninja. So it's like alter egoception.
It it felt like there was barely anything there, rather than we just want excuses to put him in whatever situation we thought would be cool.
Well,
I
that's
mean, there's the vague understanding of like vacation, maybe. I
oh
think
yeah,
I caught that,
I felt that as well.
but
he is a detective, isn't he? He's like a Hawaiian shirt-clad detective who has a
oh, so yeah,
gun.
like a Magnum PI or something.
Right, but you're right. There
Mhm.
is really the in-game narrative is just kind of thrown in between the levels, but it doesn't really feel like you're actually engaging in any sort of plot. It's just collect gems, defeat bosses, move on to the next stage.
Yeah, what does Jason think?
Uh, I agree. There wasn't really much explanation of what was going on. You just kind of jump into a haunted house and start shooting bugs at stuff.
Makings of a
Well,
great game.
I really like the little bit though. Is that I mean, well, I guess it's a like a side scroller game. It doesn't really focus much on story. I mean, it's a Donald Duck game. I guess it's like, oh, Donald Duck, so let's just
Right.
make a theme out of it. Like how Shaq Fu, that stupid game.
Oh my
It's like, oh,
gosh.
let's put Shaq in a fighting game, and I just thought that maybe the name will sell the game, and I don't know if that's exactly what they had here, but I guess the story really wasn't important, but I really like the setting that it was like, oh, you have to convert into this ninja thing, but I just hope that they explain it a little bit well. I mean, you could get immersed into the game a little bit more.
I'd probably agree that it's definitely about the game. Like, it's actually a Disney interactive title, whereas if I recall correctly, in the past they've hired other companies to make the game,
Right.
and so it seems almost phoned in. Just like, Here's a Disney character in a game. Yeah, you'll love it."
You know what's disappointing though is that we've seen really great Disney games in the past, and I know you've probably played Aladdin, and especially for the Genesis, Aladdin is one of the better games for that console. Disney games, I should say. But the
Yeah.
strange thing is, United States and North American Genesis owners really didn't get a chance to play this game because Maui Mallard, I mean, because it wasn't released in the United States in cartridge format. Only came out on the Sega channel, and I have no idea how many people actually subscribe to that channel. It's like a subscriber base. So we got the Super Nintendo version, which had really nice colors and really nice soundtrack. But you have the Sega loyalists, and we were discussing Sega loyalists last time we got together, but they really defend the Sega version as the ultimate. Have you guys played the Sega version at all?
No, no.
It's pretty nice. I mean, I will admit there are elements of the Sega version that aren't quite replicated in the Super Nintendo version. But if you put the two side by side, and if I actually upload the video on YouTube of my gameplay, you'll actually be able to compare and contrast the two. but they're very, very similar, and I don't think that we missed very much just playing the Super Nintendo version. I think we'll be able to give a pretty much full-on perspective review of the game. But yeah, you're right. The story doesn't really go into the narrative at all. You just kind of participate in these generic exercises throughout the levels. And think about the time this came out, 1995. You're expecting a little more out of your out of your Genesis games, and you're certainly expecting
Oh
more out
yeah,
of your
yeah, yeah.
Super Nintendo
Sure, I
games by
agree.
1996.
It's funny that you brought up Aladdin. The one on Genesis, the
Right.
one released on Genesis was Disney Interactive and Virgin Games or Virgin Interactive, whereas the one they released for the Super Nintendo was actually Capcom.
Wow, that's very interesting. And I know that one of the
Oh really?
differences between the two is that the Genesis version is less censored. Instead of throwing apples, you hack people apart with the sword. Uh,
What?
It's true. It's true. Aladdin walks around with this. I don't remember him brandishing a dagger in the movie. He may have, but in the Genesis game, he actually does attack people with like a little dagger.
Oh yeah,
Genesis
that's
has done
pretty
a
cool.
censorship in the past too, like with Mortal Kombat. There was the blood code and stuff in Nintendo that never existed.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That was probably one of the biggest mistakes that Nintendo made, if you think about it. Like the Genesis had the adult version of Mortal Kombat, and the Super Nintendo had, I think they called it Sweat Mode or Milk Mode. It didn't feel like the arcade at all. It was a disappointment.
Well, like that carries on even into the future. Like the titles released on N64 were all kind of downplayed in that regard for the most part. I mean, there were still things thrown in like Turok, but like the PlayStation basically goes all out on like Resident Evil came out that
Yeah,
way.
but I
Yeah,
mean,
so okay.
so we're
Now I
kind
remember though. You remember you said something about Turok and
of.
like GoldenEye and stuff like that. It was really cool actually because I remember I'm now having like a really big flashback. Like at that time I was pretty young, and I think that the reason why my family chose the Nintendo over PlayStation and stuff is because the PlayStation didn't really have any limits. I mean they could have games like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, the first one, and you fall down in the ground and you're bleeding. And in comparison to the N64, which didn't have any blood whatsoever. Yeah, I guess the violence factor was a huge thing at that time.
For violence in just generally in Nintendo games, it doesn't seem to be too much of a factor, at least if it's made well enough. But you see, the Donald Duck game, there really isn't many opportunities for you to insert any violence in it. And you brought up GoldenEye and Turok, and those are games that did really well despite not having, really prominent characters. Of course, Turok had Turok, but he didn't go on, to be the most memorable, franchise, the face of the franchise of the Nintendo. So maybe we could talk a little bit about the characters in Donald and Maui Mallard and whether or not the game makes use of characters. I find that really Donald is the only character who gets any kind of screenplay,
Yeah,
and anybody
that's true.
else. It seems there are other characters. I know you guys haven't played too far into the game, but you've played at least up to the ninja transformation, and you met like the shaman. And there are other characters that are sort of within the game, and there are this little tribe called the Mudrakes, and I think that's what they're called, the Mudrakes. And you basically have a couple of chapters of the game where you're centered around passing their physical endurance tests. It's kind of interesting, but yet again, the only character in the game that really gets any play is yourself, Donald Duck, aka Maui Mallard, aka Cold Shadow, the ninja. What do you think, Jason? What do you think about the characters in the game?
Nothing really stands out. I mean, we had some ghosts, and there was those evil butler guys.
Oh right, yeah, the
I'd
Those
say.
enemies.
annoying butler guys.
There's some variety there. You're right. There's the mad butlers, the insects, the ghosts, the ninjas, these little I don't know what to call them. They're like these hellspawn demon things in the lava level. You'll actually see pictures of them if you look at the if you look at my video clip. But there is a good variety of enemies. I'm not saying that, the characters themselves are lacking. It's just the main character tends to be focused right on Maui Mallard. And unfortunately, they don't spend very much time actually discussing Maui Mallard and why he's in this game and why he has a necessity to collect 80% of the gems in every level before he can go on. I don't, maybe he has some compulsion to do that. Maybe he's a money grubber. But at any rate, they don't really explain that. But the other characters are basically just accessories to that plot. They don't really offer anything in terms of gameplay. What do you guys think?
Well, honestly think that maybe it's because we haven't really watched Maui Mallard. I know there's like how Donald Duck is always put in a place, like for example he could be Darkwing Duck. I don't know if you guys know that. Um, Sort of like a Batman version of Donald Duck.
Right.
Yeah, and oh wait, no, Donald Duck. Yeah, and maybe it's because we're not familiar with the characters. I'm not really sure if this was actually an episode in the cartoon. That's why like if maybe if we were like aware of what was happening in the cartoon, maybe we could relate to the game a little bit more. Maybe like he had to fight a lot of ants, and then we're like, oh, these ants are just normal enemies. But I mean, you get my point. Like maybe at one point in the cartoon, he's gonna see a couple of ninjas that are really hard to hit for some stupid reason. But yeah, well, I guess we didn't really have any connection with the characters in the game, even if they're just enemies. And I mean, they are pretty well designed. It's just that there wasn't really much of a connection. Like, oh, why are you shooting those ants? Maybe they could be nice. I mean,
Well, I definitely think we should talk a little bit more about the ninja transformation because it actually makes the game surprisingly dynamic. But first, I want to get Jacob's opinion on the characters of the game.
Uh, Again, it's just we get one centralized character, and well, that's basically the goal of it. It's Disney promoting their characters in like specific franchises, and I mean, I wouldn't mind. Well, I don't think if you're aware of the material involved that it's poorly designed, but again, they shouldn't work under the assumption that you do. If they know they have a good game, they shouldn't just rely on that.
Well, some of the, like I mentioned before, the ninja transformation, I think I would consider that as part of you'd consider that a different character because really the whole gameplay changes once Cold Shadow comes into the game. But one of the things that I really liked, and this kind of segues into the level designs, is that when you're Cold Shadow, different parts of the stage are not accessible to you. It's only accessible to Maui Mallard. But when you're Maui Mallard, some parts of the stage are not accessible to you. I don't know how far you got, but when you're Maui Mallard, you can climb vines, and you can like hop on these different platforms, these like launching platforms, for lack of a better word. But when you're Cold Shadow, you can use your staff to swing from one ledge to the other, and you can even do this really nice trick where he's able to pin himself up against two walls and climb
yeah, I
a
remember
steep
that.
incline. That's a really cool part, and I thought that was a great use of the dynamic controls in the game. And this is where I do want to talk a little bit about the Genesis version because I was playing on the 3-button controller scheme, and the Super Nintendo is defaulted to 4 face buttons, not including start and select, but just 4, A, B, X, Y. Now the Genesis is ABC. So I do think there are too many controls in Maui Mallard. And this is surprising to say, but there are too many things that you have to do in the game to accommodate the 3-button controller because there are certain things like you need to do weapon switching, you need to do transforming and staff tricks. And I found that it was fairly confusing to remember how to do these things when I was playing the Genesis version because I was used to the Super Nintendo having a button, that you can map out to every single thing. In fact, you can even use the L and R buttons to switch your
Yeah,
weapons,
for switching weapons. Yeah.
Mega Man style. So I guess I kind of pushed myself into the controls aspect. But anyway, the fact that you have all those things you need to do, and the fact that you need to get through the levels. By the way, there are a lot of different levels there are a lot of variety of stages. There's the mansion, there's the jungles, the caverns, like I mentioned before, the magma-filled caverns, and there's even a sunken ghost ship, which makes it very cool.
Because he's a ninja and they need pirates. Is that it?
Oh, and actually, incidentally, in the sunken ghost ship, you're not the ninja. You're Maui Mallard because you need to use your gun to navigate through the water. You generate like inertia by firing your gun, and that's how you navigate through. You don't swim like Mario or Donkey Kong. You shoot your gun and you go flying in the direction that your gun
Oh,
propels.
okay, I get it. I get it.
Actually, it's sorry, it's mentioned like the platforming elements of it and like the differentiation between the two characters. But I found even I'm not sure how much this continued, but there were certain aspects of it that they changed according to where they wanted you to go, like puzzle based specific ones, like platforms that you could the same style of platform, same design that you would be able to jump underneath to get on top of in one situation, it wouldn't allow you to do it in another one.
Right. Yeah. They're actually, you know what? They implemented that well. And one of my favorite things about the game, I'll just go ahead and say it right now, is one of the parts of the game where you actually have to switch over from Maui Mallard to Cold Shadow and back over like 3 or 4 different consecutive times in order to just climb one area. And if you fall down, you've got to go through 4 consecutive transformations to get back up there because there are things that Maui can do that Cold Shadow can't, and like I said, vice versa. What did you guys find early in the game? I guess Paulo and Jason, what do you guys think about the level design, level variety, as far as how far you got in the game?
As far as variety,
Jason,
I mainly got through like the first, I guess it'd be the first 2 levels until the ninja transformation. Um, seemed the graphics overall of the level seemed fairly good.
Right.
I think for games at the time, not the best I've seen out of the SNES, but
No.
but it was good enough. Overall, it is a game aimed at children, so it wasn't like extremely difficult, at least the first couple levels.
No.
um,
You make a good point about how the graphics look in the game, though, because on the Super Nintendo version and the Genesis isn't lacking, but the Super Nintendo actually takes advantage of some pretty nice visual effects. Like there's lighting in the mansion later on in the mansion before you fight the first boss. There's these little tricks that they do with the lighting. You remember the stage where you're walking through the dark halls and there's this little lamp following you around? There's that, and then there's also fog in
oh
the
yeah, I
later
remember that.
levels. That's
Mhm.
really
Yeah.
nice, but you see, and there's also nice transparency effects. If you remember in the beginning when you go behind the glass window, well, not every console took advantage of that at the time. The Super Nintendo really did have a nice graphics processing. I think they had more colors available on the screen than the Genesis, and that may be why there's, vibrant colors in this version of the game. What do you think,
The
pal?
Oh wait, well now that you mentioned the ones that you were walking behind the glass,
Right.
actually that was one of the things that I actually liked about this game. Well, in the first stage, actually, there are a lot of things that the thing that I love about video games, especially before, is that whenever you play a game like this, you don't really need manuals. You just play the game like, oh, let's just bash buttons and see what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a good idea because as soon as you play, the game is actually teaching you how it should be played by the game design. Like for example, the first level, um, the minute you walk out, you see this little ant, right? And then he falls down, and then he's crawling towards you. And
Right.
then so obviously, what you have to do to shoot it is you duck and you shoot. And because you're gonna start bashing the shooting button, you eventually hit the bottom of the clock, and then you see that it's gonna break, and then you get an item, and then you're thinking like, oh, okay, so I can shoot the bottom of the clock, so I could get items. And then if you move a little bit forward, you can get the power up for the alternative weapon,
Right.
and then you move a little bit forward, and then you go at the back of um the rotating bookcase, and then you realize that you can't go back. So now you know that there is a backstage. Like you have to go through the
The
rotating
bookcase.
bookcases, yeah. So you can go to the back of the mansion, and then you could also but you can't go back. So then you have like choices like, oh, do I go here now or do I go to the elevator that goes down, and stuff like that. I could also shoot stuff so you can get stuff, which is it's pretty obvious. But I mean, when you're playing a game like this, you don't really shoot at objects in the background. I mean, there's this one thing that annoyed me when the 3D games came out. Remember in Resident Evil or the games like I didn't really play Resident Evil a lot, but like Silent Hill, when you're
Yes.
playing through a game that's in a one camera in one place, and then you can see the items like way far ahead because they're 3D and you're 3D and
Mm-hmm.
everything else isn't. Like oh, okay, I know there's an item here because of how it looks. back then, you only had a 2D platform, and then you don't really know what to shoot. You can't tell. You just shoot at everything. So I think that's a good idea. Like I just thought it's pretty cool that you had to duck and then shoot that thing, and then you actually accidentally hit something else.
Right. Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah.
it kind of eases you into the controls, and that's also a good way to segue into into our next topic about the controls of the game and the user friendliness, really, because if a game is not user friendly, I think we'd all agree that it would probably crash and burn pretty quickly in the market at least. So I know that you're probably chomping at the bit here, Paolo, to talk about the jumping arcs of the game and the controls
Yes,
because as
because
you
it
mentioned,
sucks.
well, you know what, we were discussing last time that Mega Man is really kind of the benchmark for controls in a lot of
Yes, it
actiony
is.
type games because it's smooth. And this is every version of Mega Man that I've ever played, from the Game Boy to the Nintendo to the Super Nintendo. They're smooth. What do you think about the user controls of Maui Mallard and Cold Shadow? Don't rip
Well,
it
to be
too hard of
honest,
a new one.
before we well before we get into the movement and like the controls, um I'd like to talk about the first thing I noticed
Hmm.
was the turning, and that bothered me as hell. When you turn, you do this like a whooshy thing, right? But the thing is, what annoyed me so much about this is like the hitbox. It's because you're Donald and you're leaning forward,
Right.
so I can't really tell if you're gonna get hit or not because your hand is like you know stretched out. I'm actually stretching my hand out. I thought you guys would
It's
see.
sometimes it wouldn't hit you, like a column's coming down and it's like, oh no, I'm under the column, it's gonna hit me, and just
Yeah, I
nothing.
know it's
And
stupid.
then you slightly tap something else and you take damage. It was the weirdest hitbox ever.
Jason, I got to ask you, are you
Yeah,
a
and
fan of Mega Man?
I do like Mega Man. It's been a long time since I've played any of those games, but they were always fun.
Do you find that this game at least has worse controls than Mega Man? It's harder to control Donald than it is to control Mega Man?
Yes, I would agree.
it was just like a yes. I
Cut,
know it
cut and dry
sucks.
answer. Well, I guess I asked him a yes or no question. But I mean, I agree that you guys the hitbox is very strange, and it's more pronounced on the Genesis version where he really sticks his hand far out there. I have no idea why he's doing that because he looks like an old man who's like trying to navigate a hallway. He's like hand is stretched
Yeah,
out.
I know.
And one time I got squished. This pissed me off. I got squished because one of those uh, columns that dropped actually touched his fingertip, and Donald got squished out like a pancake. And I'm like, I'm not such a noob that I stood in front of that. I know I didn't do that. And when I looked at the footage, I noticed that his hand, for whatever reason, was reaching out underneath the column. And of course, I didn't want to get swished by the column behind me, so I moved forward just a little bit. And then the column in front of me came down, hit my hand, and squished me altogether. And this problem also is reflected in the jumping and the platforming. Sometimes jumping from one platform to the other is very sensitive, and if you miss it by just a hair, unlike in Mega Man, which is very forgiving, if you miss a platform in Maui Mallard by a hair, you're just going to fall. And there are some cheap deaths because of that, because you can't really see what's underneath you sometimes. You fall, and then if there's a gap beneath you, so be it. You fall and die.
Well, yeah, well, now that you mentioned the jumping thing, well, before we talk about the jump part, because that's a really important part of the game.
Right.
Remember you said something that you really can't see where you're jumping.
Yeah.
I think it has also something to do with the camera movement because I really thought it was wonky. It was actually it's like when you jump. You know how in games and like platform games, you usually have like if you hold up, you're gonna look up after like a second or so,
Yeah.
and if you hold down, you're gonna look down. As for the camera on this one, when you jump, it doesn't go with you. It's almost like it's delayed. I don't know if you guys noticed that.
No,
Um,
I did, like, not even just for jumping, is everything, any action that Donald did just felt slower than the rest of the game.
yeah, when you're turning, yeah, yeah, that's probably why I mentioned that because I remember that game like the dark game when you're walking around with like a light bug.
Right.
And what's annoying is like for the whole game, you're gonna have like a constant supply of butlers
Yep.
coming from you to you from behind, about to butt rape you. And what's annoying is like when you're gonna turn around to shoot him, which and he takes like five or three shots or four. Let's talk about the enemies later. But
Yeah.
like when you're gonna turn to shoot on him, and the minute you turn, it takes like a second for the camera to move to
Yeah.
where he is.
Right.
So what I do is like the minute I turn, I'm already shooting. But since it takes like a split second for you to before you can shoot after you turn, the the enemy is almost like in your face, and you're gonna get hit no matter what. So eventually, I was just like, I'm just gonna keep running, you know.
Do you agree with Paul or Jason?
I do. I also notice a delay, like if you're trying to duck or if you're trying to aim at an angle or anything. So you
Right.
kind of have to think ahead and plan ahead what you intend to do.
Right, that's definitely true. And the enemies aren't as fast as they are in some platforming games, and we'll talk about the enemies more if you'd like, but your reactions to the enemy is a very important thing to be able to translate to the game. And Maui definitely takes his time getting from one spot to another and reacting to the things that happen. I'm not saying it's as bad as like, oh, what was that game, Dragon Quest? Or not Dragon Quest, it was Dragon's Lair on the NES. Have you guys played that?
Yeah, yeah.
Nope.
That was
Extremely.
really bad.
Oh my goodness. Well, it was an arcade game, I believe, and then it was a ported over the NES, and it's got some of the worst controls. It's not as Maui Mallard is not that bad, but given the amount of things happening on the screen at once, and sometimes like the amount of ninjas that might appear, or the amount of bugs that might appear, or butt raping butlers that might appear, you got a lot of things to react to, and not enough time to react with the controls the way they are.
But I think well the reason why I I wanted to talk about the jump arc specifically
Right.
is because in all the games, especially even up to now, I mean even for shooter games that destroyed the jumping and impossible bunny hopping and the Counter Strike games,
Right.
jumping is actually really important for people for moving because it's the fastest. It's sort of like a dash, but jumping is like the standard. If you want to go here from here to here, you jump. If there's an enemy that's about to shoot you, you jump. um so and the reason why I always compare it to Mega Man is because if you when you're playing Mega Man, if you want to get to this place to this place, and or for example, you have to jump over this thing, but there's also an enemy above you,
Mm-hmm.
so you can only jump at this specific arc.
Right.
If you press the jump button too long, you're gonna hit the enemy on top, so it means you're gonna get damaged. The reason why I pointed out how bad the jump arc here is because it's too high, first of all, and then second of all, when you're holding the jump, since there's a lag, you don't really know how long you're holding it specifically. And I
Mm-hmm.
actually died a lot of times because when I see a really huge gap, I try to jump, but for that specific part um in the first level where you have to jump over these windmill thingies, like it's a rotating flying thing that when you jump on it you're gonna get thrown up. I'm not really sure um how I'm gonna jump over it because whenever I try to jump over it, I always like overshoot. It's because like I said, the lag and the jump arc, the exact shape of where you're gonna jump to isn't that good, and I feel like this actually destroyed the game. If you could jump properly and you can shoot fast enough, I think it's actually pretty fine. I mean, because the shooting involves you drawing your gun and then doing that. It's the well, by the way, the animation is actually pretty okay.
Okay.
But yeah. So I honestly think that if you ruin the jump arc of any game in 1995, your game is ruined whatsoever.
Right. Wow, that's a big statement that it ruined the game. Do you think that this is the single worst thing about the game, the jump arcs?
No, well, I think that if they fix the jump arcs and the reaction time, like
Right.
the balance of the game, like if you could jump properly, even if the hitbox is even if the hitbox sucks, if you could jump enough, like if you could jump as good as Mega Man, then I honestly think that you could maneuver the levels better, and then you'd have a sense of you'd have a sense of control over your character rather than it be like a, oh shit, this guy's really really slow, I have to jump now or else I'm gonna get hit. You could avoid like last minute enemy ditches or whatever, just because if you press the button it's gonna respond immediately, and that's what the game didn't have.
Well, guys, it sounds like the game has substandard controls, a lack of
Yes.
Yes.
storyline, and it's not looking too good for this game. But maybe we'll find something nice in the enemies. What do you
The
think about?
music.
We'll get there
The
eventually.
music is awesome, dude.
I would probably have to disagree with that, but we'll get to there a little later. Let's talk about the enemies. What do you think of the
Start,
enemies
Ryan.
that you encountered up to that point? I'll ask Jason first.
There wasn't that much variety in like the first level. I mean, you had some bugs and the butlers and maybe some ghosts.
Right.
So there
Right.
wasn't that much variety as far as the first level goes.
Did you get to the ninjas at the next level?
I did get to the ninjas, and I found they were really annoying to try to kill with my staff.
They were difficult.
Yes.
They were actually one. They were pretty much they were the bane of the entire game because not many other enemies took as much concentration to kill as the ninjas did. What do you think, Jacob? Uh-oh.
Jacob's gone.
Oh, he's all
sorry.
set.
No, like the ninjas were annoying because they just seem to have more reach than you in certain cases where it's like, all right, we're on one platform and the knockback a little bit, I can't get you. But like on the first level, this is my biggest complaint about the enemies.
Right.
Is the great majority of the enemies on the first level are like spiders, they're bugs. You're encountering bugs, and what happens is I'm not sure if it's upgrades or what, some sort of element for the guns that you acquire are from flying bugs. The
Hmm.
first one I encountered, I spent at
Yes.
least 30 seconds
That's
just trying
true.
to shoot it out of the air
That is true. And I wonder
before I
if
just moved
Maui is
along.
shooting bugs out of his gun. That is an interesting question. I don't know if that's true, but why would you collect bugs, which are enemies in the game, in order to power up your gun? Doesn't make sense to me.
Exactly.
What do you think, Paolo?
Well, as far as enemy design goes, I liked it when enemies have a sort of a weakness. You know, like how I'm gonna use Mega Man again because
Go
Mega Man
ahead.
is like the baseline game.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, you know how there are enemies that involve you to hit them at a certain time. Like for example, if they're about to shoot, um, that you can shoot them. So that means you have to wait for them to stop blocking so that you can hit them. I mean, I didn't find any enemies that are like this, or maybe it's because we didn't really try. I mean, we didn't really make it far enough for us to look for enemies that have it. I mean, we honestly didn't even see any bosses yet. I mean, as for me, that is. But I really hated how the hitbox of the enemies are. I'm going for the hitbox again. It's because, like, for example, what's this? The butler guy, the butt raping butler. It's like whenever you shoot him, if you shoot twice, one pellet is gonna hit him, and the other is gonna go through him.
Yeah,
I don't know if you guys noticed it.
it does.
It's annoying because it takes him like 3 shots to get killed. But instead, if you button bash, you're gonna hit him like you're gonna shoot like so many times, and he's not gonna die immediately.
Right.
And that's annoying for me because when you hit him, he does this animation like, oh, he goes back like, oh no, I'm hit. But did you hear that in stereo? Like, oh no, I'm hit. But because I actually threw my body back. But anyway,
You're getting
actually-
animated, man. Did you think that Donald Duck would make you so animated?
Donald Duck
Um,
enrages me on a daily basis
Oh,
to an
no.
extent that no one understands.
We'll have to talk about that a little later because I'm quite intrigued. Um, I mean, the enemies in the game for me, I did actually, to be fair, I did get to the end of the game. I didn't beat it. It's not very easy at points, but I did actually proceed nearly to the end of the game. And there are a good variety of enemies. The way that you fight an enemy never changes. Like in Mega Man, you have like those. Oh, here I go referencing Mega Man. But in Mega Man, you have those shield enemies that you can only shoot when they turn around and expose their engines. In this game, there really are no enemies that you have to change your strategy. Rather, what you have to change is your adaptability to the levels. The enemies don't change, but if you're in the level with the constant respawning butlers, remember the dark level. You always have to turn around and keep watching your back, and then use that lightning bug to find where the enemy is. So you have to use the you have to use your wits to be able to locate them. In the water stage, you have to kind of plan out how you're going to shoot the enemy in relation to you being launched backwards while you're doing it. And there's even a level. This was actually, I missed this earlier when we were talking about the variety of the game, but there is a boss later in the game. You approach him and you fight him basically like a side-scrolling shoot 'em up game, like R-Type or Gradius, and you have to dodge these projectiles coming at you. He's actually a pirate duck, pirate ghost duck, and you have to fight him like a side-scrolling shoot 'em up game. But as far as fighting the enemies go, you can use as many different power-ups as you like, but it's really just point and shoot.
Wait,
Only
now that you
solution is
mentioned
use
the
gun
power
on
ups,
enemy.
Yeah.
well, now that you mentioned the power ups, I remember that I actually investigated like how like what's the purpose of the combining the electricity with the fire one or whatever. Then I realized that the power ups don't really do much. I honestly thought that well, especially in games in 995, when you get weapons that you can combine with your main weapon, you're gonna get a stronger one.
Yeah.
But it turns out that you're like for example the electric bug, if
Right.
you use it, it shoots 3 times, right? But
Mhm.
if you use it on the butler, only one electric bug is gonna hit him. The two will go past him. I honestly thought it wasn't that well thought out. I mean, if you had like a shooter, all of them should hit the butler at once, and he should die. You get it? I mean, it's sort of like a how you get a special gun, and since it's limited, you can only you have to save when I'm gonna wait for the boss or whatever. But since the hits don't really matter. I mean, it's not strong enough to destroy an enemy once, so it has like 3 attacks, but not all attacks hit them because of the hitbox thing.
Right.
I tried it. Oh, well, I remember now that there was a boss in the blind stage, the dark stage. At the end, there's like a skeleton sort of kind of thing. You guys remember that?
The spider skeleton
Yes,
robot
spider
thing.
skeleton. Yeah, but I tried using the weapons on them, and it didn't really do anything. It's like, oh shit, I might as well use the green ones because at least those are faster. I mean the normal shooting
Oh
thingy.
yeah.
So yeah, so there. I
Did you
just thought
get?
it was kind of useless to have like multiple weapons when you can't really, you didn't really have an exact time to use them.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. Well, they changed the power-ups. I think changed the dynamic of the bullet or of the whatever he's shooting. I actually haven't really figured that out up at this point. But they don't increase the damage. I did find that on the Genesis version there were better power-ups. Like there was a cluster bomb that you could shoot, and these little blades would
Oh no
fly
way!
out. Oh yeah, it was. It
I should
wasn't
play
like
that.
I don't
I've
want
been
to get your
robbed.
hopes. I don't want to get your hopes up. It's not like the most amazing thing I've ever seen in video game history, but it was something that I didn't see in the Super Nintendo version. There was just a little more variety of the weapon types in the Genesis version, I believe. Um, but I think that overall, I mean, if we're talking about controls and how you control Donald and how what you do with him and how you fire the gun, I think firing the gun and the enemies in the game, that's next to the twitchy jumps and the cheap deaths. I think I would be okay with a lack of variety in the gun as long as the game overall works pretty well. But the fact that both there's kind of a lack of variety in the gun and the game doesn't work very well as a playability, that kind of that's like a double whammy for the game. It's kind of inexcusable for a 1996 game to have all those problems.
Yeah, well, oh wait, now that you mentioned like since we're only talking about the gun, I remember like when you turn into a ninja, I actually was excited about it because I thought that it would introduce a whole lot to the game. And the one thing that I was proud of the game though is like I said, I like it when the video game teaches you how to play it via its game design. And I remember like you said that at one point you can use your stick to prod it into 2 walls so you can go higher. Like if you're from a lower level, you could go up by using your stick and then jumping up again, whatever. If you the minute you transform, if you move forward and you kill like the first guy, um, you're gonna see like one of the enemies actually doing this. Do you know that part? Like he's in
Right.
this one a small tower and he's doing the jumping thing,
Yeah.
and you're thinking like, oh dude, I could do that too because I have a stick. And I actually yeah, and I actually liked it. I mean, I had that mentality. I was like, dude, I mean, come on, I have a stick. He has a stick. Mine's
That's
probably
true.
longer. But
Not according to fighting those ninjas. They have quite a reach
okay,
on you.
Now that we're talking about that, you know what? When I discovered that, because when I thought that you could turn into the guy with the stick, I thought that I have a gun. Why do I want to turn to the guy with a stick? Then I tried fighting the ninjas, and like what I said, the hitbox is annoying because once you hit them, well, honestly, I never hit them first. They would hit me first all the time. But when I hit them first, since they don't really die in the first hit, you have to hit them multiple times. So what happens is like you're always gonna die, almost gonna die whenever you hit one, because you get hit like twice, and then you hit him like three times, and then you get like a lot of damage, and then and that's the time he's gonna die. Then at one point in time, I realized that you could change from the ninja to the gun wielding one,
Yeah.
because I was bashing buttons. I was like, I don't want to, I want to kill you now, and then I transformed. And I was like, dude, I have a gun. He has a stick. I'm gonna shoot you. So, I mean, that was pretty bad because I thought that the reason that they introduced the stick ninjas is because you also have a stick, so it puts you in a level plane that, oh, you're short ranged. You're supposed to have like a stronger hit, obviously, but you're put in a level where your enemies damage you more. You can't hit them enough because for some stupid reason they have a longer reach than you. I just thought that it kind of ruined the game. I mean, that was the reason why I stopped at that point, because I was like, I can't even hit ninjas. I mean, I'm supposed to be like a master ninja, right? And I can't hit
Yeah.
them, and I opt to shoot them because I have a gun, and that's pretty bad. I mean, I just thought that like, oh man, I mean, this game could have been more.
It could have if there was a little more attention to it. So, I mean, if we were to recap right now, there aren't very many ticks in favor of Donald's in Maui Mallard. I would imagine at least, but we'll give it. Um, we'll see if it can actually make up for those shortcomings in the next category that I had written about, and that's the soundtrack. So now I guess I want to ask
Yes.
Jason about the soundtrack because this is really one of the parts that could either make or break the game at this point.
I think as far as like the quality of the composition, it sounded okay, but I don't know. It seemed kind of odd to me that there's like calypso music for like going through like a haunted house.
True, that's true.
So it seemed kind of out of place, but I don't know.
What do you think, Jacob?
I thought it was just fun, and it suited the game that way, and just the kind of disposition between the calypso music and haunted house is just because right off the bat you're thrown into Maui Mallard,
Yeah, I think that's the connection.
and that's all I got from it. But like frankly, the music to me was just fun, and it's just helped.
What do you think, pal?
Well, sorry, I'm eating.
Well, okay, I'll go ahead and go and let you eat. The thing is that the soundtrack for me, nothing stood out. Not a single track stood out as something that's memorable.
Not even the Wayne one.
No, I mean, well, like he said, the calypso type music. He's Maui Mallard. You kind of expect kind of some sort of a Hawaiian type approach, or kind of a beachy type atmosphere approach. But the the issue that I have is that I guess I'm coming in with high expectations because by 1996, so many great soundtracks had appeared in video games. And this one you'd figure because it's a Disney game, and of course, so many Disney movies have just timeless music. I mean, go into Aladdin, and there are songs from Aladdin, The Lion King, that are today being covered by really great singers and vocalists. But Donald really didn't have a leg to stand on in this game. I mean, they could have done more with the composition and
That's true.
make it a little more memorable. Now, I don't know if my standards are too high because I just know of too many fantastic Super Nintendo soundtracks, and I know that we're probably going to get very tired of the Mega Man comparisons, but Mega Man X, for example, I can remember every single theme song of every single stage in the order in which I played it. Maui Mallard is very forgettable. I go away and I can't even remember what the soundtrack sounded like. What do you think, Paolo?
Well, as far as composition goes, I don't really want to demand much from this game because, like I said, it's just a side scroller game. To be honest, we're actually destroying the game. I mean,
I
it's
know.
good because it's good because we're actually reviewing the game. I mean, we're supposed to put it in a level plane, but in a way, I don't want to put my heads up. I mean, as far as music goes, because I think that's, to be honest, that's supposed to be like the last thing you should worry about.
Right.
But um, since we're talking about the music, I actually like the main theme, the jazzy one. That's sort of like a, you know, that bit from The Mask, where he's
Okay.
dancing with everyone else and
Yeah.
stuff. I think that's the reason why they picked that kind of music. It's big band. It's supposed to like pump you up and whatnot. But to be honest, it didn't really translate that well in Nintendo and polyphonic tunes. Um, as far as the repetitiveness of the music, I didn't really like it that for the first two stages you only had one music. It was kind of annoying because I mean you could have variety in your music. Like Jason said, it's um it's a haunted mansion, but you didn't really have any haunted music themes. But
No.
I mean it's the first stage though, so I guess I mean in retrospect, they actually picked a really bad first stage. They could have started with like a boat stage or something,
Yeah.
but they picked a haunted mansion.
Like, yeah, something that would have given like little explanation rather than ghosts.
Yeah, I
Ghosts
know.
and gems.
But if you think about it though, since we're talking about the music, I also want to talk about the sound design.
Okay.
The hit designs. Sorry, I mean the sound of the gunshots and whatever. I didn't like it at all. I didn't
Like
like that. What do you mean?
when you shoot the gun, it basically sounds like you're squishing something, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's what I didn't like about it. It didn't sound like you were actually hitting someone. It's like you're throwing something out lightly,
Right, right.
lovingly. Like here, this. Oh no, I'm hit.
No,
Oh
it
I
no.
doesn't.
will harm you with compassion.
Yeah, that was how I felt. I felt like I wasn't, hitting someone specifically. It was sort of like I'm throwing a snowball lightly, and I didn't like that it didn't really have any. I mean, the background sounds like, for example, if you go through a bookcase and it moves around, it didn't really translate as much because you didn't really feel it. I mean, the good thing about having a lot of good sounds is that you can associate yourself with those. Like for example, I'm gonna give you a really stupid game, Crash Bandicoot. I
Okay.
mean, I love that game so much. And there isn't and the sounds that separate it from the other is like it's cartoony and whatnot. Every time you get an apple, you get like this whooshing sound, and then you can every time you hear the spinning sound, it's Crash Bandicoot. It's consistent with the games, and I guess it has something to do with the game design because they didn't really give Maui any specific super video game specific stuff.
You
Like
know
he
what's
didn't really have any.
disappointing is when we're talking about the sounds, Donald Duck has a very unique voice.
Yes,
You know what I
exactly.
mean?
Yeah,
Yes.
It's like the whole type sound, and
Yeah.
they
oh
didn't
god,
utilize that at
do
all.
it again. How'd you
And
do that?
it's like not even there has been good Donald Duck game based music too. It's the moon theme from the DuckTales game
Oh
is
yes.
astounding. Everyone knows it.
Yeah.
I am glad that you mentioned that. DuckTales is a great NES game. This is not really a great follow-up. I don't know if we should look at it as a follow-up, but I mean, I know that we've been bashing it pretty hard in terms of all its shortcomings, but I think when at the end when we tally up everything, we'll find that maybe we'll give it some we'll forgive it a little bit because it's not trying to be something that it isn't. And I think that's important to note because the game,
Wait, before we do move on
right, right.
and finish the game off, um, we haven't talked about the user interface.
Oh, true.
I mean, what do you guys think? What do
Uh,
you guys think?
who wants
It
to,
was it was it was minimal. It's kind of like, all right, you can just go play the game, please.
well, the user interface is for the most part mapped into the controller, which is really
Yeah.
nice. At least for the Super Nintendo version. There are really no menu switching, menu hopping, and things that you need to do within the menu, and that's um, for a simple game, that's okay. You don't really need that because Mario certainly didn't have any of those elements in the original Mario games. Now, the more complex platformers did. I mean, like Demon's Crest had an inventory, actually. Mega Man had an inventory. But Maui Mallard has his gun, his upgrades, and his ninja transformation, and everything you do is just handled through the controller.
What does Jason think?
There's not much there that was needed, and they put everything in there that you need to get through the game. I don't know. It's aimed
What
at
did you
it's
guys think?
supposed to be a
So
kids game, so you shouldn't expect it to be too complex.
Yeah, just cut and dry.
that's true. What do you guys think of the hitbox though? I mean, I mean the life bar. I honestly didn't know which one was the life bar until
Oh,
I died.
yeah.
Yeah, it took me a while to realize it, and how coins instead of gems refilled it. Like
Yeah.
what?
Well, there's an interesting
Wait,
part
they
after the
did?
ninja
I didn't know
transformation.
that.
Yeah, well, I think there's these actually that what refills it is those little glasses of punch that you drink. And there's also an ability to increase your meter by like 50 or 100 and you get these special power-ups and then you'll have a longer life bar. It's just not very easy to tell because it's a number instead of like a graphical bar.
Yeah,
But
that's what I didn't know. I mean, well, if they could have a number and you can have like they had a percentage, right? Did I get that right? Or it was just like a face and a number.
it
They
was a
didn't even turn red whenever you're about to die. I
yeah,
was like, what?
no, there was really no. I mean, once it got to zero, of course you're dead, but it seemed like the enemies that would hit you would have inconsistent amounts of damage, and it differed between the Genesis and the Super Nintendo version. If you get hit by somebody, it might knock off 20, and that got kind of annoying on one of the stages where you had to fight like, oh, I don't know, 10 consecutive ninjas, and they're all just ganging up on you and smacking you around like a little punk, and you're very quickly running out of health. But yeah, there's actually one more thing that we haven't mentioned about the interface, and I'm not sure how far you guys got in terms of the ninja tokens, but you pick up these little yin yang tokens, and they apparently upgrade your ninja, and they allow
Oh,
him to
really?
perform. Yep, they upgrade your ninja a little bit. I mean, obviously, the more tokens you gather, the better. But in terms of that actually translating into the game, it didn't really have a profound effect for me. But it's just one more thing that I noticed about the game. And the ninja had a ton of health, by the way. I don't know if you guys really noticed, but his health bar shot up into the 200s and 300s, and I found that I was able to take incredible amounts of damage, which is good because I was taking a lot of damage as the ninja. But
Well, you need the 200 life if you get hit by those other ninjas all the time.
yeah, absolutely.
I just kept getting owned by the other ninjas, so
You know,
I keep,
I did.
Yeah.
apparently they didn't give me enough.
Well, they were killing you then, or you just kind of gave up after a couple tries?
They killed me a couple times, and then I said, okay, maybe I'll come back to this later, and then I didn't.
Well, that's the problem that I had. That's replay. Actually, we haven't really discussed the replay value.
Oh yeah,
Were we
replayability.
compelled to come back to the
Uh,
game after we played it?
not really.
No.
No, Jason wasn't, Jacob wasn't, Paulo
No.
wasn't, and personally, I would say no, but I would also say that I would give it another chance. I mean, mainly I got as far as I did because I wanted to capture some footage, and apparently the footage is major suckage. But at any rate, I didn't feel like it was a labor, to actually play through the game. So I would probably play through, maybe make another attempt. But is it an addicting game? No. Does it give you a reason to really come back and make you want to play more? Not really. It's too simple for that. But it's not too much of a chore to get back into it. Like Paulo said, it's very easy to learn the controls. It's just a matter of the controls not being implemented very well in the game.
Yeah, well, if you think about it, back then when you bought a game, you have to stick with it. It's not like like how we have a lot of Steam sales right now or like humble indie bundle stuff.
Yeah,
But back then, when you bought a game, like for example, me, my dad would go to the U.S. and then for something, and then he'd come back with like 3 games or whatever. Then we'd have these games. If the game sucked, we have to play them either way.
yeah,
So
it's true. And
yeah,
if you're like me and your parents took you to the Blockbuster and you rented one game, then one game could ruin your weekend. And if you're really a fool like I was, and you see a game that's called Superman 64 sitting up there,
Oh no.
and you just
oh
assume
no,
that because it's a Superman game that it must be really good, and you say, "Hey, Mom, can you buy me that because that game looks like it'd be really fun." When you get that piece of crap home and you try to polish that turd off, you realize that there's really nothing to avail. So, yeah, I was one of the
I
people
thought
who bought Superman
I actually
64
thought
when
you
it
were
first
gonna say like when you polish that third, you can actually make a polished third.
No, it's
There we
actually there is
go.
no polish to that turd. It's corns all the way. There's nothing redeeming about Superman 64, and I don't know if we're going to consider Maui Mallard to be a polished turd, but at the end of the day, I agree that that would kind of ruin your weekend if that's what you were stuck playing. It certainly isn't something that makes you want to go back and play it more.
No.
Yeah,
It's
so I guess
and
we're pretty much convinced that the game sucks.
I
I
I, I want to give it a little more of a chance because the issue is that we don't really have Matt's opinion, and I don't think that his opinion would be incredibly high of the game. He mainly picked it because it's a nostalgic game, and I've picked a lot of nostalgic games that
Oh
I found
yeah,
out later on were not as good as I remember them being as a youngster. But
that's
Matt
true.
definitely played this game when he was younger, and I'd like to hear his opinion on it, even if he just gives it an opinion, like writes it in. Um,
Yeah,
I would be very interested in hearing how it
I
compares with his expectations.
I I
I
might
wanted to see that as well because Matt chose this game and then he was saying that it wasn't as good as he remembered it to be. But I'm feeling that I'm pretty sure he finished the game, but I want to know like what he liked about it. Like, oh,
Why
this is
did
the
you pick
game that
this game?
yeah. Why did you make us suffer? But Jacob was gonna say something. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
I'm like I mean, as many as the flaws that are apparent in the game, I don't know if I'd go so far as to say it sucked. Like it didn't stand out as, oh my God, this is horrible. Like there's a lot of things that were frustrating, but like I didn't. My day was not ruined by playing this game.
Right,
Like
right.
it could have been significantly worse.
It could have been
Oh,
like
that's true.
playing Daikatana
Oh God.
or
Well,
ET.
I didn't really call it. I didn't want to say it sucked, but more like, it could have been better. I'm telling you, it. I mean, like you had Donald Duck, you had guns, you had ninjas. I mean, what
Yeah.
else could have gone wrong? It's just that maybe they didn't really think about it that much. They were like, oh, you know what, this is fine, but
Yeah,
it could
it's
have been better. I just wish they didn't really try to push the envelope too much. I mean, I honestly think that whenever games try to go beyond to change the game designs or whatever. I mean, you already have a Mega Man as a basis for jump arcs and movement.
Yeah.
Whenever they do stuff like this, like make it different, like for example, the turning has to do with that. You can't really turn and run at the same time. You have to turn and then run.
Hmm.
I also think that when people do this, it's almost like they just want something unique for them for their own game, and I honestly think that kind of ruins it.
Well, it sounds like we've exhausted Maui Mallard to its fullest extent. I think we may be able to start wrapping it down now. So I'm gonna ask Jason, does Maui Mallard suck? Or is it okay? And if it does suck, why does it suck?
I didn't think it totally sucked. I kind of enjoyed playing. I came in with no expectations or very low expectations, and I actually enjoyed it more than I thought I would. It
Oh,
wasn't. It wasn't like a real pain to play. I mean, sure, things could have been improved. There's little quirky things that do get kind of annoying, but it wasn't. I wouldn't say it was a horrible, horrible game. It's not a outstanding game, but it was okay, and I don't regret playing it.
you know what? I'm gonna jump on your side and say I agree with you because I didn't have very many expectations either. Um, I mean, I said earlier that this is a 1996 game and it should have performed better. And I was being serious because it has a lot of things that are being measured up against it. But personally, I didn't have any expectations when I went into the game. So what I got was basically what we heard today. It was a game that was flawed in many ways. It was a game that maybe was released without as much quality control as we'd hope from a Disney, product or Donald for that matter. Because if you want to play a great Donald game, pick up DuckTales for the NES. That's
Yeah,
that's
that
a
one is pretty
fantastic
good.
game. Very good music too. Maui Mallard didn't quite live up to the expectation that some people would have of a Disney game. Certainly not when you play Aladdin before playing it, because Aladdin's a wonderful game, wonderful little playthrough.
I have a question though. Is Maui Mallard like the first Donald Duck game? I mean, for example, DuckTales is good, but did that come before Maui Mallard, or did
Yeah,
Maui Mallard?
it came
Oh,
significantly before.
well then that is that is embarrassing.
It's a step down, but it seems the game is very careful not to call him Donald. It's always Maui Mallard. He's
Oh
not
yeah, that's
Donald
true.
or this or that. I mean, there's a game called Daffy. There's a Daffy Duck game where they actually use his real name, or not real name. He's not a real life person, but they use his character name Daffy. And it seemed like this one, outside of the title, which is Donald and Maui Mallard, the North American version wasn't even called that. It was called Maui Mallard in Cold Shadow, and Donald Duck was mentioned nowhere in it. It's just you know it's Donald because you look at him and you see him. But outside of that, I really didn't have many expectations, and I'd say that the game didn't deliver anything that surprised me. But once you started playing the ninja, I really felt that the game opened up and dynamic. And even though so many flaws held it back, the jumps, the hitbox, the lack of variety in the weapons, even though there's some variety, the lack of potential of using those weapons, there were some redeeming qualities of the game, and I would say that if I had to give it a one thumb up or two thumbs up, I'd probably say that I'd give it 1/2 thumb up. It's not something
Let's
that
make it a numerical thing. How about 1 to 10? Give it
one
a
to
give it a
10. I would give
handshake.
it I'd give it a 5. What about you, Jason?
Yeah, it'd probably be about a 5.
And I'm not saying a 5 as in like when you open up Game Pro and everybody gives games 8, 9, and 10, and 7 is the bad score. I'm actually using 10 as a fantastic game and 1 as a terrible game. Donald and Maui Mallard would be like a 5. It's not bad.
I'll give it like a 4. What about
Ugh.
Jacob?
Yeah, no, I'd have 5, maybe on a very good day, push it to 5.5.
What about the game? If you had to just sum it up, would you say, Jacob?
Um, Disney Interactive had a game, presented a lot of potential, but kind of phoned it in because Maui Mallard was the focus. It was just, it's a game about this. We don't really care.
Good point. And Paulo.
Well, I think I've explicitly told you what I want about the game, but well, yeah, well, I'm just promising you guys that if I pick a game, it's gonna be awesome. Okay.
That's fine with me. In fact, we can actually wrap it up right now. When we do our next meeting, we are definitely planning to do a Halloween theme. Is that correct?
Yes.
I would pitch for one of the games that we want to pick, Castlevania. Either Castlevania 4 on the Super Nintendo or Castlevania Bloodlines on the Genesis. You pick which one.
Let's go for the Genesis one because I've never played any Genesis game.
It's an interesting
I,
game.
I'd like to throw in Ren and Stimpy Lost in Time because
Interesting.
I'm sure you guys will like that game. It's actually a really dumb game, but if you play it enough, it's actually like a side scroller arcade type, but the sound design and the animations are pretty good. I mean, as far as I remember, I might turn into a Matt and be like, oh, I remember this game being pretty good. But yeah, again, I'm not bashing my Matt. I'm just saying that I remember this game to be actually to have good music and good animation and stuff. Because I remember back then I was surprised that it was just a Ren and Stimpy game, but it turned out to be it was almost in level with I don't know Spider-Man Separation Anxiety. I don't know if you guys have played that game. Yeah. Anyway, so I guess we could just suggest games in the groups later on
Okay.
for like all 4 of us. I mean,
Hopefully
if you
more.
guys like this,
Hopefully more people will join too because Matt couldn't make it and neither could Trishan. And Brian was busy today. But
yeah, sexy
hopefully,
time.
well, he's a gigging musician. I'll give him a pass. He's got a good reason to not be here. But maybe if we had a little more time to prepare, the others might be able to join in. I'm hoping that at least because the Halloween episode, I call it an episode. The Halloween meet and greet. A lot of great things can come from that. I mean, video games, Halloween ideas are pretty much exhausted at video games. We'll be able to find countless examples of fantastic, scary games, whether it's a Resident Evil, a Zombies Ate My Neighbors, Castlevania, maybe not Ghosts and Goblins because I don't want to pull all my hair out, but
Yeah.
oh, there's plenty of ideas.
Well, maybe okay. Since I didn't actually notice, but we've been talking for an hour,
Uh-oh.
and we didn't even like go as far as we did before. I mean, like the first one we did. I mean, the first test one we did.
Mm-hmm.
So I think maybe next time we should like be as straight to the point as possible. I mean, I'm not saying that we shouldn't deviate from giving examples. I'm just saying that maybe we should set a time for us. Like for example, if you want to have it as like a 30-minute thing, let's keep it to a 30-minute thing, and then
Okay.
like go straight to the point. Because I mean I know I have enough time for it because I set this up, but I'm just like I mean because like for example I know Trishan was really game for it, but it was just really late for him.
Right.
But he really wanted to. So maybe if we could promise him like, no, it's gonna be 15 minutes, I swear, baby, baby, shh. Maybe. Yeah. But I do like everything that we talked about today. I mean, I thought it was like very informative, and you guys said a lot of stuff that I really didn't think of that as much.
And it's
Oh,
surprising because we only played through, most of us only played through 2 levels, and there's a
yeah, I
lot
know.
to like analyze in the game. Actually, I think that we'd be lucky if we could squeeze in an in-depth analysis in 30 minutes because there's just so much to pull apart on these
Yeah,
games.
but if you think about it, though, I mean, we already talked about a lot of the basics on this one. Like we
Right.
talked about what we liked about jump arcs and whatnot. So maybe, if we have another side scroller game, we could just reference ourselves. Like, oh, you remember that I talked about blah 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 blah. And I think it's gonna be easy because we all know each other anyway. It's not like we have to explain it again.
Right, right.
But yeah, I had fun.
That's good. It'll we kind of basically just trying to settle into a groove here and find out what's the best kind of format because we do intend to eventually make a podcast and to actually make maybe even a live podcast, one that people could tune into every I don't know, once a month, twice a month, however often we do this.
But
And
like I said, the chances of people actually the chances of us having huge fans is higher than Racer X reuniting. So
and
I
and then
have hope.
you know what? I have faith in that as well. But I mean, I had a ton of fun today discussing the. Even though we didn't pick the greatest game in the world, I'll admit I would probably be more at home talking about Mega Man rather than Donald and Maui Mallard. But even though we didn't pick a real zinger of a game, I think that it's definitely worked out pretty well today.
Yeah,
Even the
it
fact that
did.
we were able to get, um, basically we have actually Jason. It's probably earliest for him. Probably right now it's like 8:20 or something like that.
Yeah.
And for me, for Jacob and I, it's 11:20, and for you, Paulo, it's 11:20 in the morning. So we really have
Yeah.
a huge spread right now. And imagine if Matt and Trishant were here, then we'd have pretty much every at least continent covered almost. So
The sun never sets on the video game empire.
no, it never sets on whatever we call
Yeah, because you're
ourselves.
always inside anyway.
We don't know what the sun is.
What are women?
Oh my
Oh
gosh.
god, I'm sorry. I just remembered. Like the movie, Conan the Barbarian,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
there,
yeah.
there, there was a scene like, and Conan learned about women, and then the girl stripped, and I was young, and I was like, what? That's how you do it.
Did you take note
I
of
just
that?
remembered. I'm sorry. It's like when you're a video game player and you're like, sort of barbarian, and then you walk out and you're like, these are women? What are those things? Are they boobs?
They didn't really give you a lot of opportunity. If you were a Nintendo gamer, they didn't give you a lot of opportunities to see virtual sex gleaming there on the screen. I mean, they tried to censor most of it. So
That's
your best
true.
opportunity was to get on the old internet and click away.
The internet even didn't even exist when and the SNES were. I mean, well, it did, but it wasn't like, oh, you go to the internet for porn. It wasn't like that.
No, no, no. That didn't happen until the late 90s. Not,
Oh,
well, I think that's when you couldn't navigate the internet without bumping into a porn site.
Well,
You,
that's
you really couldn't. You really couldn't type Dragon Ball Z without seeing some hentai.
no. Well, anyway, yeah, I think that's it. Well, I'm only planning on making. Well, actually, with my YouTube channel, you could upload past 15 minutes, but I don't know if I can make a new one because as far as I know, like if this is 1 hour, it's gonna be in like multiple parts. But yeah, if any of you guys could, if you Ryan could send it to me, then I'll just make it and I'll make a new channel, and I'll just name it as like RX VGC for now, and then we could just think of a better name in the future, if ever we want to decide. Yeah,
Yes, technical difficulties is fine with me, but let's hear from everybody else. See where
yeah.
I
I
kind of
mean,
like the
it's
idea of
actually a nice name, but it's more of a Paul Gilbert thing than a Racer X thing. You
that's
know,
that's true.
Yeah.
I want it to be like a specific Racer X stuff that only we know, like blowing up the radio or something. I
That's
mean,
it'll be tough, but maybe we'll be able to do something that incorporates it.
yeah.
It'll pay
I think
homage to a band that really doesn't exist right now, won't it? Basically, liking Racer X is a way to examine classic music, isn't it? Because they're really not around right now. And much like we play classic video games that pertain to the 90s and 80s, we listen
and
to
they're never
music. Yeah,
and they're never gonna release a new
there will never be,
NES game.
well, hopefully there will never be a Maui Mallard in Cold Shadow #2 coming out on the Virtual Console as a homebrew or whatever. But Super Nintendo, its time has come and gone, and basically we're sitting here and analyzing it like a piece of history. Well, the same goes for Racer X, because until they come out and release a new record, or at least commit to a reunion, which is almost impossible at this point, very improbable, then we'll be doing the same thing for Racer X that we'll be doing for vintage video games.
Yeah, beating dead horses.
Yeah, oh, I suppose so. I don't like to look at it that way though, because there's just so much material in the any kind of older music and older video games that I missed when I was growing up. And I didn't have a gigantic video game collection when I was younger. So I have to collect now. I have to start getting into it now as I'm older in order to catch up basically. And I find that I'm doing the same with music, whether it's bebop music and jazz, and I have to go all the way back to the 30s and the 40s, or if it's hair metal from the 80s. I
Oh wait, hold on. I just remembered. Maybe you know what? I remember the Castlevania suggestion.
yeah.
Maybe we should play games that we have never played before.
Um,
I mean, like none of us have ever played. I mean, it's impossible, but at least like, for example,
Well, how
because
will we know what to suggest?
I guess we'll have to
but
throw it
yeah,
into.
we just browse the ROM sites and be like, oh, this seems like a good game.
We
You
could
know?
we could do that, but I think we would be locking ourselves away from a lot of extremely great video games because I'm pretty sure that we've played most of the classics that are out there,
Oh,
and
that's true.
it would be kind of a shame if we never got a chance to talk about a Mega Man game. Although there is probably a Mega Man game that we've never played. It's called Mega Man Wily Wars because that never came out.
Mega Man 7.
Oh,
Those ones that
oh,
are
come on.
repetitive and stuff.
Mega Man 7 was an okay game, but it's one of those $50, $60 eBay games that just drives me insane because I wish I got it when I was younger. And instead of having to track a copy down for under 60 or 80 bucks. It's insane. Mega Man has aged very, very well. And it's one of
Get it
those,
wrong.
yeah, Mega Man doesn't age. He's timeless. But my favorites, I looked on eBay because I'm on eBay a lot. I just want to see the value of the games that I have. And my entire NES collection of Mega Man pretty much has jumped in value, one from 1 to 6. And there are going to be a lot of games that we'll want to play on the emulators that are like those high value games that we could never hope to acquire on eBay for a fair price, but they're there for us in the emulator market.
Okay. Anyway, yeah, we should cut this now.
Yes. Yes.
Do you want me to stop recording?
Yeah, we should say goodbye to our fans. Bye, fans from the future, the
Yeah.
2020.
Bye,
5 years
Imagineering
from
fans.
Buy our DVDs with the special features.
yeah, starting out as guys who are from the internet, and maybe we could be I actually thought that it would be really dumb if we actually do become popular and in the first game we're bashing the game itself. Like, what
Join
are you guys talking about?
That's true. Some games
I mean,
deserve it though.
That's not the point of our video game club though. But I mean, I just thought it would be funny it's because like,
Well, if you got to be serious about something, if you have to actually call the problems, then I see no problem with that.
yeah, okay, yeah, that's it.
But
Okay,
guys,
thanks guys.
great time talking with you, and I will be in the Facebook group trying to
Yeah,
figure
me
out the
too.
next time that we
Yes.
will meet up in the next game or games that you want to do. If we want to hold off until later in the month and we'll do a Halloween special, that would be perfect for me because there are things that we can do for the Halloween special that don't even just involve the games that we play. But I'll get into that a little later. So
Alright.
until next time, join us again on another scintillating episode of
Of
technical difficulty. I'll cut that out. I don't know what I'm talking. Well, I'll just
technical difficulties.
technical difficulties. Adios. Bye.
Yep.
Okay.